The Lord promised better things for us, okay? Because the Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahushua, has a favorite people. And he's going to give this favorite people a heavenly kingdom. A kingdom that's blueprinted and formatted and patterned after his mind. How he want a kingdom to be. Psalms chapter 84 and verse 10. For a day in thy courts is better than 1,000. So one day in the kingdom of heaven is better than 1,000 of your best days on this side, man. Let me repeat that again. One single day in the kingdom of heaven is better than 1,000 of your best days on this side, man. Okay? Where things were better for you. Moments that you can reminisce on and say, yeah, that was a good day. The kingdom of heaven blows it out the park, man. It blows it out the water. Just one day. Not to mention, the Heavenly Father, he's going to stretch out the time. He's going to expand the time so you can enjoy your immortality. You can enjoy your life. And the Lord said in Wisdom of Solomon, he created the Israelite man to be an image of his own eternity, man. We're going to be a likeness of his own eternity, man. We're going to be many most highs, man. We're going to be many most highs. Okay? God's on earth under Yahweh Shem Yahushua.
Consider the lilies, how they grow. They toil not, they spin not. And yet I say unto you that Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. If then God so clothed the grass which is today in the field and tomorrow is cast into the oven, how much more will he clothe you, O ye of little faith? And seek not ye what ye shall eat or what ye shall drink, neither be ye of doubtful mind. For all these things do the nations of the world seek after, and your Father knoweth that ye have need of these things. But rather seek ye the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell that ye have, and give alms. Provide yourselves bags which wax not old, a treasure in the heavens that faileth not, where no thief approacheth, neither moth corrupteth. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers. And peace and blessings and salutation to the hopeful lake out there pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakadash, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful lake, the believers, the listeners who have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. All right, and what I want to get into this morning is the royal, marriage feast. You know, the royal marriage feast, okay, as we've been commanded, by our great King Yahweh, to be into the marriage, okay? So when you go to the book of Matthew, chapter 22 and verse 9, it says, go ye therefore into the highways, and as many as ye shall find, be it to the marriage, be it to the marriage. You see, because this is a union, this is a union between the Heavenly Father and his people, through Yahweh, okay, because Israel, is the bride, all right? And at this time, there's a remnant, that's the bride, okay? Now, all of Israel is considered the bride of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua right now, okay? there's a remnant, okay, that the Lord looks at as his bride, okay, and a king, would send his servants out, especially talking about a royal feast, okay. Well, a king will send his servants out, to particular people, to particular houses, to particular families, okay, and they will be invited, to a royal wedding. A wedding, was a big thing in our culture, okay, but a royal wedding, was extravagant, you know, and the king didn't take it lightly if you rejected his invitation, okay. So you have, people that reject, okay, the invitation. You see, because that specific family, that's being invited to this royal wedding is the family of Israel, okay. But only the elect, all right, would appreciate that invitation and take heed, you know, as they're being bidden by the prophets, which are the servants. Those are the servants that the king, all right, sends out and bids to his wedding. So the heavenly father is throwing a royal marriage feast, okay, for his son, okay, and the prophets are sent forth, to bid, their specific family, which is the family of Israel, to the marriage, okay. And let's prove, all right, that Israel, okay, is their bride. So let's read Matthew 22:9 again. It says, "Go you therefore into the highways, and as many as ye shall find, bid to the marriage." All right. Now let's identify the bride, okay, and the groom. All right. So when you go to first, let's go here to Jeremiah, where Israel is likened to a woman. When you go to Jeremiah chapter 6, okay, in verse 2, it says, "I have likened the daughter of Zion to a comely, which is beautiful and delicate woman." Okay, so Israel is likened to a beautiful and delicate woman. All right, and when you go here to Jeremiah 3, and when you jump down, it's the book of Jeremiah. Well, I'll leave it. I'll go here. Because then it go to something else. Well, let's go here. Okay. Because John, you go into the role that John the Baptist played. He played the role likened to a best man. Okay. Which the best man, what would he do? He would prepare, the bride, for the groom. During the whole betrothal period, the best man, okay, will have an important role in preparing the bride for the groom. Okay, so let's go here. It says, this is John 3:29. It says, "He that had the bride, okay, which is Israel, is the bridegroom." All right, Yahweh Shai. "But the friend of the bridegroom, which standeth and heareth him, rejoiceth greatly because of the bridegroom's voice. This my joy, therefore, is fulfilled." Okay, so this bride is Yahweh, is the church. Okay, the elect, the bridegroom. All right, Yahweh Shai. Okay, the friend of the bridegroom, which was John the Baptist, was what prepared the church. Okay, the bride for Yahweh Shai. Okay, he came back in this time as elder. All right, Abba Bivens. Okay, John the Baptist came back in his role as the best man. Okay, to get the church ready, the bride ready for the bridegroom. Okay, Yahweh Shai. Okay, and then let's go here. When you go to the book of Corinthians, it might be second. Let me see. This is Second Corinthians chapter 11 in verse 2. It says, "For I'm jealous over you with godly jealousy, for I have espoused you to one husband. You see that? That I may present you as a chaste virgin to her Mashiach. You see that? So the Apostle Paul, he's writing to the church of Corinth, and he's likened unto, a best man that's getting these churches, these Israelite foreigners prepped for Yahushua, which we was all likened unto Israelite foreigners and Gentiles, born, in America, wherever in this world, in this beast system, all right? We was likened unto Gentiles that had to be what? Okay? Cultivated and groomed for Yahushua. You see, we're like a woman espoused, okay, especially a wild woman, a woman that's not of nobility, it would take a lot of training, to get her up to par, okay, to be compatible, okay, with nobility, man, with a noble husband, okay. So we were like these wild women, they had to be tamed, okay, and conditioned, okay, to be compatible, okay, with a noble husband. You see? It said, for I have espoused you to one husband, all right, that I may present you as a chaste virgin to her Mashiach, okay? It's not we're going to be literal virgins. We're going to be spiritual virgins, which means we're not going to, we're going to be faithful to our power, okay? We're not going to be penetrated by other doctrines, no other doctrine is going to penetrate our mind, our spirit, okay? We're going to be faithful to one doctrine, to one way, to one power, okay? You see, Yahweh Bashim Al-Shai. Okay? So it is true, and the Lord has it, to where we're being cultivated by this word. Okay? We're being dipped in those oils. We're being prepared like unto their bride to a royal feast. Okay? To a royal marriage feast, man. Okay? And the Lord is not going to take it lightly for those that have rejected, okay, his feast. Now you go here. Going to Luke, which is the same parable. Okay. All right, this is Luke 14 and 16. It said, then said he unto him, a certain man, all right, made a great supper, okay, and bade many. Okay, so Yahweh Bashim Al-Shai, this truth is like being invited to a great supper, a great feast, okay, of a king. And it says, and he sent his servants, all right, he sent his servant at supper time to say to them that were bidden, come, for all things are now ready. You see, for now everything is ready. The seals have been loosed in this truth. The understanding, is now here. Everything is ready. Okay. So now, all right, we in a time where understanding is abundant. So the meal is prepared. Okay, this truth. You see, when you go here to the book in Proverbs chapter 9, because we in the time now where everything has been opened up. Okay, all understanding has been opened up concerning the scriptures, man. Proverbs 9 and 1 said, wisdom have builded her house. She have hewn down her 7 pillars. She have killed her beasts. She have mingled her wine. She have also furnished her table. This is wisdom. So this one, it says everything is ready. Well, this understanding, okay, is has been furnished unto us, man. The Lord has furnished, all right, his people with understanding. And we know at this time only elect are going to partake, okay, in this feast, in this royal feast. Okay, it says she have killed her beast, she have mingled her wine, she have furnished her table, she have sent forth her maidens, those servants, the prophets. She cried upon the highest places of the city, screaming out their invitation, bidding them to the feast. Everything is already decked out and ready. Okay, everything is decked out and ready and laid out, to be consumed. This is a royal marriage feast, man. Okay, it's like a royal banquet and everything is laid out, man. Okay, all these different varieties, all these different brothers that's teaching this word, man. Okay, It's like a buffet of wisdom. You see? And it says, verse 3 says, she have sent forth her maiden, she cried upon the highest places of the city. Who is simple, let him turn in hither. As for him that wanted understanding, she saith to him, come, eat my bread and drink of the wine which I have mingled. Okay? And we know that bread is Yahweh Shai. Okay? And that wine what goes into what? That new covenant, that agreement. All right? That we're going to come into when we change. You see? So we're being bidden, to a royal wedding feast. Okay? And everything is already laid out. We're being able to enjoy, this buffet before, all right, the wedding, as we await the bridegroom, Yahweh Shai. And see, when he's going to take us into those chambers, that chariot, okay? And the laws are going to be put in us. We're going to be changed. You see? A woman, she's changed forever on their wedding night. Okay? A woman that was an actual virgin. Okay? Well, she will be changed forever after their wedding night. You see? So we're going to be changed forever after this deliverance, man. Okay, but right now the Lord has a royal, like a spread laid out, okay, in the spirit for his people as we await, okay, the bridegroom. Because see, these Western marriages are completely backwards, okay, where everybody, stands and, when the woman comes out last, the wedding is about the woman, she comes out last. Okay, everybody stands up and reverence her. No, in the ancient world, it was the exact opposite, man. Okay, the groom, okay, was the headliner of the marriage. Okay, he will be decked out. You see, and everyone will be waiting on the groom. You see, on the man. All right. So we're, the women is preparing ourselves, soaking in oils. Okay, getting prepared for the bridegroom. Okay, so let's go here real quick. Let's get this in the book of Luke. Go back to Luke 14. This is the book of Luke, chapter 14, and verse and 17. I read 17 again. It says, and sent his servant at supper time to say to them that were bidden, come, for all things are now ready. And they all with one consent began to make excuse. The first said unto him, I have brought a piece of ground, and I must needs go and see it. I pray, all right, I pray thee have me excused. And another said, I have brought 5 yoke of oxen, all right, and I go to prove them. I pray thee have me excused. And another said, I have married a wife, and therefore I cannot come. Okay, so these men made all these excuses about what they had going on, why they couldn't come, and this, because you go into this parable, especially during this time, all right, first you have to deal with the aspect of, a lot of the circumcision, they didn't, consider Yahweh Shai of anything of importance, a lot of circumcision. You had some that did, a lot of his people did, receive Yahweh Shai of the circumcision. A lot of people didn't. Okay. So you had those that was of the circumcision, okay, and they didn't consider, all right, Yahweh Shai, they didn't believe. They didn't the invitation didn't move them, they was concerned about their own thing at that time, what they already had going on. Okay. And in this time you have our people, okay, that their life in this world, okay, is far more important than this royal marriage feast. Okay, this spiritual buffet. Their life and what they got going on now is far more important. Now, this sounds similar. Okay, let's read this again, and we're gonna go into Luke 17. because all these excuses sound similar to the days of Noah. Okay, showing you that Noah was calling out. Noah, he was bidding to the marriage. He was bidding, all right, to a you know, to a royal feast. He was inviting, all right, Jake to mercy, to salvation. He was inviting, the sons of God. Okay, but Jake was doing their own thing. Jake wasn't considering. Okay, so even Noah, he was given the invitation of mercy. Okay, because the royal feast is that really speaking of this royal marriage, the supper of the lamb is for this time, but Noah was inviting, to mercy. He was bidding, all right, the sons of God to mercy at that time, all right, and they didn't consider. Okay, they was caught up in their day to day, all right. Luke 14, 18 again says, and they all with one consent began to make excuses. The first said unto him, I have bought a piece of ground, and I must need go and see it. I pray thee, have me excuse. And another said, I have brought 5 yoke of oxen. I go to prove them. I pray thee, have me excuse. And another said, I have married a wife, and therefore I cannot come. Okay? So all these excuses, and when you go into how Yahweh Shah said it will be, during the time of the end, before this great destruction and before his return. Well, when you go here to the book of Luke, chapter 17, and verse 26, it says, and as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the Son of Man. They did eat, they drank, they married wives, they were given in marriage until the day Noah entered into the ark and the flood came and destroyed them all. Okay? So you see, the same excuses that Jake was making, well, this was going on during the flood. When Noah was given, all right, when he was inviting Jake to mercy. Okay? It's the same thing that was going on then. You see? So just as now, as our people, they reject the invitation. You see? And they was caught up in their own thing, their day to day. Okay? Same thing was going on during the time of Noah. All right? Verse 17 says, they did eat, they drank, they married wives, they were given in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark and the flood came and destroyed them all. Likewise, also it was in the days of Lot. They did eat, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they built it. What they said, look, I just bought some land. I need to go survey it. I got a woman. I got this. I got that. You see, the same thing. Likewise, as it was in the days of Lot, they did eat, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they built it. But the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. So we in that time again. All these people that made these excuses, all right, for the wedding. Well, this was the mindset before the days of Noah. Okay, in the days of Noah, before the flood. Okay, and also before the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Everybody was concerned about their own thing, what they had going on. Okay, and they made light of this invitation. Okay, but the Most High, he's not going to make light of their rejection. You see, he's not going to make light of their rejection, because when you go here, just a quick Google, all right, and I said, what's the consequence of turning down an invitation, all right, of a royal, marriage, all right? It says, based on the parable of the wedding banquet, Matthew 22, turning down a royal feast invitation brought severe consequences. The king deemed the guests unworthy, destroyed their city, killed the murderers, and replaced them with others. So your city got destroyed. You turned down the invitation, and your city got destroyed. It's not the Lord finna destroy Babylon the Great, which is likened to a great city. Okay? All our people that have rejected, all right, the invitation. You see? It says indifference or refusal was considered a fatal rejection of royal authority. Man, this ain't just nothing, you know. This ain't no invitation to the club. Okay, this is rejection of royal authority, fatal rejection of royal authority. Okay, this ain't nothing light that our people, they wave the hand, they mock, they ignore, or whatever their response is besides humbling down, okay, and receiving his word. You see, repenting, okay. So whatever their response is outside of it, it's considered a fatal rejection of royal authority, man. Okay, and that's why the consequences are gonna be severe. Okay, because our people they reject. Okay, this invitation, to this royal, okay, wedding. All right, those same people are what they're gonna take to see him, and the heavenly Father gonna be pissed, and he gonna send Yahweh Shah back pissed. Okay, and Yahweh Shah finna show the earth true power. Okay, what Esau has, right, it ain't gonna compare to what Yahweh Shah coming with. It says violent judgment. It said the king viewed the refusal as rebellion, sending troops to kill those who refuse, all right, and burning their city. So the Lord doesn't take this thing lightly. Okay, our people that refuse this royal invitation, man. Okay, because ultimately it's leading to, this great marriage. Okay, supper of the Lamb. All right, at the return of Yahweh, man, it's gonna be an actual feast, man. Right now it's a spiritual feast. Okay, a spiritual buffet of understanding, but it's gonna lead to, us being delivered change, and in the actual feast. Okay, with our great King Yahweh, us being joined back to our power forever, us being reconciled back to our power forever, man. Okay, let's get that let's go here to Isaiah, and then we'll get that in the book of Revelation. This book of Isaiah chapter, I want to say 54. All right, this is the book of Isaiah chapter 54, and I started at 4. It says Isaiah 54 and 4 said, "Fear not, for thou shalt not be ashamed." All right, and this is the remnant in these latter days. We're not going to be ashamed, neither be thou confounded. You see, we're not going to be disappointed in how this thing plays out. For us to decide to come back to our power, to be faithful to our power, to prepare ourselves, for Yahweh Bashim Shah in these last days. We're not going to be ashamed to be confounded. We're finna come into glory, everlasting glory, man. It said, "For thou shalt not be put to shame, for thou shalt forget the shame of thy youth, and shalt not remember the reproach of thy widowhood anymore." Okay? Because we was put away for disobedience, man. That was a shame, that was a lifelong shame when a woman get put away. She had to bear that shame. You see? That was a very shameful thing in the ancient world, not like this society where you have divorce parties, and you see the East was completely different, man. All right, completely different than this madness. Okay, they call culture and society today, man. Okay, it says, "For thy Maker is thine husband, the Lord of hosts is his name, and thy Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel, the power of the whole earth. All right, shall he be called? For the Lord have called thee as as a woman forsaken and grieved in spirit." Yeah, because we was a wife that was forsaken. We got put out the house. The Most High Uncle Field eyes, man, threw us from Israel, to the Queens in New York. Uncle Field eyes across the whole ocean, man. Okay, he was pissed. and our behavior and our conduct, man. He was displeased with the conduct of his wife, man. Okay. And it says, and a wife of youth, when thou wast refused, said thy power. For a small moment have I forsaken thee, but with great mercies will I gather thee. Okay. And this is why he's sending out his servants, okay, with this invitation, because now he's getting ready to have mercy. He's having mercy, man. Us having this understanding is mercy in this time. Us to be able to have faith, which is a gift, that's mercy, man. So the Lord is getting to have mercy on his people and sending, his prophets out to be it to the marriage. That's a gesture, okay, of mercy, man. Okay. It says, in a little wrath I hear my face from thee for a moment, but with everlasting kindness will I have mercy on thee, said the Lord, Yahweh Bashim al Shah, thy Redeemer. Okay. So the Lord's getting ready to have mercy, all right, on his people forever, man. You see? Oh, man. Let's read this some more. Let's read verse 9. Because is the spirit we spoke about Noah. It said, for this is as the waters of Noah. Okay. It said, and this is as the waters of Noah unto me. For as I have sworn that the waters of Noah should no more go over the earth, so I have sworn that I would not be wroth with thee, nor rebuke thee. Yeah, because we're going to be changed. We're going to be perfected. There's going to be no, more need for us to be punished as a people again. This is it, man. This is our last captivity, man. These are beautiful times, man. And the Lord has us in a good state, because we got, when you look at this thing, man, we have abundance, man. We have the truth. We have our daily bread. We have, the brothers. Okay. We have these prophecies that's happening, man. It's working in our favor, man. We have abundance, man. You really got to tap into an abundance mindset in this thing, man. The Lord got us good, man, and it only get better. Okay, said, for the mountains shall depart, and the hills and the hills, all right, be removed, but my kindness shall not depart from thee, neither shall the covenant of my peace, okay, be removed, said the Lord, all right, that have mercy on thee. Okay. You see, so the Lord's kindness is never going to be removed from us again. And this new covenant is going to be everlasting, man. And we're going to always be at peace with our power, But it begins with us being called into what? The marriage, and it's set up for the elect to take that invitation, man. All right, let's go here to Revelation 19. Okay. It's Revelation 19:6. It says, and I heard as it were the great voice. It says, and I heard as it were the voice of a great multitude, and the voice of many waters, and the voice of mighty thunder, saying, hallelujah, for the Lord power omnipotent reigneth. Let us be glad and rejoice and give honor to him, for the marriage of the Lamb is come, and his wife, okay, the church, the remnant, the elect, okay, have made herself ready. You see? His great spirit is all about us making ourselves ready for this marriage supper of the Lamb. Okay? To be joined back with our power. That's why we constantly shed this world, and put on the elect. Okay? That's the bride making herself ready. It says, and to her was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white, for the fine linen is the righteousness of the saints. So we're being decked out, with obedience, with wisdom, with understanding our conduct. Okay? Our conduct is becoming beautiful. Obedience to our powers is beautiful. Faith, Verse 9, it says, and he said unto me, right, blessed are they which are called into the marriage supper of the Lamb. And he said unto me, these are the true sayings of the Most High. So it's going to be a great feast, where we're joined back, to our power, for good, when we're delivered in those chariots, man. Okay, and that chariot gonna be decked out, man. Okay, that chariot gonna be decked out, man, like a great, You know, you can imagine just like a great banquet hall, you know, within that chariot, man. It's gonna be like a floating, you know, floating world, you know, a gigantic floating city, man. Okay. So that's the point. Just wanted to tap into that. You know, Lord will, you brothers. All right, and you sisters edified once again. I want to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Kakodash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers. And peace and blessings, salutations to the hopeful elect Shalom.